You're watching The Experience, Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
Hi, everybody. It's Miss Jen, and it's time for Talkin Shop here on The Experience. I'm excited today. It's one of those rare days where I actually know both the people that I'm going to be interviewing, and I'm super excited for you guys to get to know them. There's like some commonality between these two guests, so you'll figure it out as we go along here. But we're going to get to talk to Dirk Manning, which I'm excited to do. He just left here yesterday and is back home in Detroit. And we're going to talk about some fun stuff. I know that some of you guys are going to want to talk about also. I took him to Buc-ee's, which is our giant store of awesomeness. And we're going to talk about why it's better than Sheets, because that'll just make Kyle, our producer, really mad. And we're going to talk about Cherry Capital Con, which is going to happen this weekend. It's a really great convention that also hosts the Gary Reed Awards. And I think that you guys, if you are local to that area, should definitely stop by, because it's I really like it because it's the definite Comic-Con, right? Where it's focused in on comics and celebrating everything about them. And then afterwards, we're going to talk to Rob Humphrey. We're going to get excited about the new book that's coming out soon that he wrote, Blaze the Dead Homie. I got to meet Blaze a few weeks ago, the coolest dude. And I really wanted to dig around in his head about other cool things that he's created. So we're going to come right back after this and get after it. Everybody, and welcome in. As always, we're super happy you guys show up to be here when we're live, because then you get to comment in the comments and ask the questions you want to ask. Don't feel shy. You can totally talk. I just want to say hi to people that are already in the room. Cool Gamer, Kenneth Bird's in the house, and Leonard Pig, all regular viewers. We're so thankful that you guys support us, and I'm sure that you've been sharing us to your friends so they can figure out where to find this cool programming. We do thank you guys so much when you support us that way. Let's get to it, y'all. Let's talk to Dirk Manning.
Hey, long time no see, Jen.
We were just talking just ahead of the show about that we both have a little more color than usual because we did on Saturday. Dirk flew out this last weekend to be part of a really cool event in the shop and at the a little open air convention. And it was an amazing experience, but I don't know if Dirk was ready for the sun.
For the record, well, yeah, it's funny. You can tell, my arm, which was covered, my face, which is not. You can see the contrast there pretty well. But of course, we can't mention the amazingness that was Bedrock Mini Comic-Con without also mentioning thank you again publicly for the amazing signing event at your store Friday night.
That was so fun.
That was so much fun. The ice cream social, and then of course the live sale Saturday night here on the XP. But also in between that, let the world know. And what was the temperature? It was 98 degrees.
I think the official actual temperature was 86, but it was 96 with the heat index, which is the only thing that matters in Houston. Very humid day.
So with that heat index, the whole time the suit stayed on.
It did.
You'll notice now I'm wearing a t-shirt because I'm still internally my body is still hot from absorbing all the heat. So I'm just rocking a twisted t-shirt right now. But I won the bet. The suit stayed on in 96-degree heat index outside all day.
Yeah, it was.
You were
the only person. I mean, maybe you were the person in the hottest outfit, honestly, if we thought about it, because there were some really great costumes out there also. So
there were. And it was funny because people are you must be from out of town. Yeah, we went from Detroit. And they're oh, what up, Detroit? They said, how long is that suit going to stay on? All day. All day. If Johnny Cash can wear a suit all day, so can I. And we did it, and we made it happen. But yeah, it was an amazing experience. So just a great weekend. So thank you very, very much for having me out. We were talking about doing this again for a couple of years, and I'm glad we finally were able to make it happen. So
Yeah. Hey, Don, how you doing? So,
Leonard, everybody's here. Hey, everybody.
So what's cool about having you come is that I get to pull out all of your work, and I found that I had like had done really well for a lot of the work, but I felt really ashamed that I did not have a single copy of Butts and Seats. It was really sad for me. That I was just like, what am I doing?
No, well, it's interesting because obviously coming back to your shop and stuff like that's been part of this whole the 20 Years of Terror tour I'm doing. And this year, as of this year, I will have 20 graphic novels out. Right. So it's almost impossible to keep up with everything. But yeah, I was in that same boat and I'm like, oh no, there's no Butts and Seats. And Butts and Seats, as we know, the book with Tony Schiavone did really well for us. Might be pretty close to having sold out of its print run as well. Which I know that's like a thing, like a trigger for you, Jen, because you're going to want to like hoard all of them now. But when we have with us having the Arn Anderson book going to be coming out in the next couple months too, I suspect I wouldn't be surprised if we do see the print run on the Tony Schiavone books dry up as people maybe that weren't as familiar with Tony but know Arn, or realize they missed Tony the first time, want to come through now and get both of them. But you had a lot of. That being said, Jen, you had a lot of cool stuff. You had the Tales of Mystery, leather-bound, gold gilded, the Bible edition of that, which are now sold out. You had the last remaining copies of the hardcover Nightmare World Omnibus, which are now sold out. You still have some of the hardcover Buried But Not Deads, which I might buy from you soon if they don't sell out. So the Ringo Award nominated, so you still have a lot of cool stuff there.
So I have a question for you, is just specifically about the wrestling. Because I'm sure you did it. I'm sure you had to do research beforehand. I feel like in the last 5 or 6 years that comic books in general have really embraced wrestling as a theme. Because there's a bunch of stuff out there that has popped up that I really love, like Do a Power Bomb and Hell is a Squared Circle, and like there's a ton of stuff that was really great. It's not, to me, it's not just like we're just going to have it be part of a funny wrestling universe. It looks like all of those are kind of taking it very seriously, and with very different points of view, and yours especially so. What do you think has happened in the last, I don't know, 5 or 6 years that has brought everyone to focus on that as a topic of comic book?
If I was being more, in character, I'd be like, well, nothing breeds success like success. And with Tony Schiavone's book being a #1 bestseller on Amazon and everything else, everyone flooded the gates, right? Crashed the gates. No, but in seriousness, what it really comes down to, I think, is, and I really like what you said about how it's fun, and the crossover between wrestling and comic books with long-term storytelling, with larger than life characters, is the Venn diagram is almost a circle, right? It's the same type of thing. And I think people have seen, a lot of the wrestling talent have seen that there's options out here, that if you find people that can treat your story, whether it be your real story or the story that you want to tell with a fictionalized version of yourself, or a fictional wrestler altogether, if you do that with integrity, not only will the fans of wrestling appreciate it, but also the real people who are involved in that appreciate it too. I'm really big on the fact that I mainly do creator-owned stuff. But for a guy that really has built the foundation of my last 2 decades on creator-owned, I did a book with the Harp Twins. I've done the book with Twisted that's been nominated for multiple Ringo Awards. I did Tony Schiavone. We just did Arn Anderson. They'll be coming out soon. And the thing that I found between all those very divergent personalities and divergent properties is, if you treat the subject matter with integrity, people respond to it well, right? When I did the one shot with the Harp Twins, we took the idea for their story, we added to it, and I really played into what makes Harp Twins. Doing the book with Twisted, with Haunted Highons, it's a fictionalized version of them, but it's a version of them that's fictionalized they can get behind. It's almost like the cartoon comic book version of them, but it's still Jamie and Paul. And you know that having met them, and having met that crew, they the much like wrestling, the Haunted Highlands version is just kind of like them on steroids almost. It's like turned up to 11. No pun intended with the steroids reference. Seriously, it's just them blown up, right? It's them, just you crank up the volume on them. And with Arn Anderson, when Arn saw what we did with Tony Schiavone's story, he was kind of like, well, can I get a graphic novel? Because he saw the integrity with which we told Tony's story, and he decided that he wants to tell his true story. So it's very different audiences. But then again, to your point, the great, Do a Power Bomb and things like that. There's these cool books out there that if you're a fan of wrestling and you treat the subject matter with integrity and don't just try to cash in on it, people are going to respond to it very well.
I think that the other thing that I find interesting about it is that you would think that, like both of those gentlemen have been in wrestling for a long time, and I'm sure have had many, many shows and documentaries written about them, that there is still such a love and desire to know more information behind the scenes, and that they knew that they had enough to like share, right?
Yeah.
It's really special that that you got access to them directly and heard it instead of like an after the fact kind of thing when it's not directly from them.
Yeah.
Did anything they say truly surprise you? Because I know you're a fan of wrestling.
The Arn Anderson graphic novel has something in there about Arn's in-ring career that has never been documented or publicly discussed before.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's funny because when we did the Arn book, like we did with Schiavone's, through Zoom calls, and he's going through his story of his career, and he mentions this thing. And Mike Dawkins, the gimmick attorney, he's our head of talent relations on this, and he helps us get some of the research and stuff like that. You see him be like, "What?" I was kind of like, "Wait, what?" He goes, and Arn goes, "Yeah, blah 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 blah," and he says this thing. And Dawkins is like, you see him like typing on his computer, and I'm like, I've never heard this about you ever. And he goes, "Oh no, it's true." And Dawkins is like, "I can't find reference of this anywhere." And I'm like, "Arn, please, whatever you do not mention this on the podcast. Don't mention this anywhere until the book comes out." Because one of the things we talked about early in the Arn book, kind of a fun factoid, was Arn Anderson is the only wrestler in history to have a victory over Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Andre the Giant.
Goodness gracious.
No one else has got all three. And that's not even the thing that is like that no one's heard before. I mean, that's something you could look up, and technically Arn's very humble. He'll be the first to tell you that his victory over Andre was the tag match. But he got the victory, right? The scoreboard, Andre doesn't have to put anybody over. He doesn't want to. So
Josh has said something really cool here.
Yeah.
That Rey Mysterio, which is his avatar, obviously a fan. So he grew up loving comics and luchadors and masks and capes he saw as a kid were just superheroes brought to life.
That's exactly right.
Great point of view.
Yeah. I mean, Mysterio at every pay-per-view, he oftentimes would, especially WrestleManias, would dress up like a different comic book character. And a lot of the wrestlers will come out in their gear. Cody Rhodes was another big one. That a lot of times his gear would be some like reference of like, he's homaging Mr. Sinister right now. That's incredible, right? Deep cuts. So yeah, the crossover there is really big, and I'm just glad to see people starting to treat it with a little more integrity. I mean, years ago there was a bunch of wrestling comics that came out that were, I never want to disparage anything, but maybe they were not necessarily done to the caliber of I think a lot of the books we've been seeing the last couple of years. Rob Humphrey, who's going to be on later, he's a big Ultimate Warrior fan, and he can talk to you about the Ultimate Warrior comic, for example. But it's just we're in a different place in how we tell these stories. And the Arn Anderson graphic novel, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Arn Anderson, My Life as the Enforcer. It's in previews and Lunar and everywhere now. You can go to your local comic shop, pre-order that from Source Point Press. It'll be out in the next couple months.
I think that also, just like other things in our pop culture, that sometimes maybe they make them differently because they know the audience is wanting different things. I kind of think about, James Bond over time has changed quite a lot. You ended up with like like this whole era of Roger Moore and some of the people that came after him. That the show is more about the shtick, the kind of funny parts, right, of the punchline. And then now they've moved completely away from punchlines. We don't really have those. I mean, there's certainly some levity in there, but it's mostly about the more gritty version. So maybe that's what people are wanting now, is we want to get down deep into what's behind the scenes of these people that we've loved watching for years and years, and this is the perfect time for let us feel like we're in their living room a little bit.
No, I think it's a great observation. I mean, we're to a point where now more than ever, not only do people have access to celebrities, I guess, if you will, but people almost demand maybe access and a deeper level of access to people than, I would argue, maybe sometimes they're necessarily not as entitled to that as sometimes maybe they feel they are, right? But yeah, we're just in a very different era where people want to do deep dives on everything. And I think it's a phenomenal observation, and just to see that continue to evolve. And I think it's so awesome that we're seeing evolution now of different voices and different people. We're diving into wrestling, we're diving into all these different things and doing these deep dives on the greater diversity of content than ever before. And I think it's really cool that in the last couple of years, I've got to work with Twisted and Toy Shimani and Arn Anderson. That just be just one guy, right? I'm just one creator and all these different things coming out of the Harp Twins, and the Lon working with the Lon Chaney estate, bringing some of that stuff back. So I know we say this a lot, and obviously the industry is in a certain amount of growth and stretch and evolution and change and sometimes turmoil, but we're in a golden age of content. The content we have right now is so good, so diverse, and it's never been a greater time to be a fan of comics.
Absolutely. And then also I feel like because we have lots of like open access to like watching our heroes that are not only in comic books but behind the scenes making comic books, that I think people realize that there are a lot of fans that also kind of think about themselves and like, could I do this? And to that end, you have had already out before, and now an expanded edition with even more helpful stuff, because the industry changes all the time.
Yeah.
This awesome book.
Yeah. So this is on Kickstarter right now at rightorwrongbook.com, or if you go to Kickstarter and look up Right or Wrong, I'm released a new second edition of Right or Wrong, A Writer's Guide to Creating Comics. And again, we talk about access and peek behind the curtain. This book is half autobiographical, half inspirational, half educational. I'm not very good at math, or there's just that much extra content. But to your point, things have changed a lot in the industry in the last 10 years since this book came out. The original version of this book was published by Gary Reed with Caliber Comics. And everything in this book is still true, but some things I found need to be updated. When I moved this book over to SourcePoint Press, originally my goal, and I'm just going to be very transparent with you and everybody else here, my original goal was just to do like a stealth update on this book and not really announce it. But go through and, maybe, some things with technology have changed, some things with, financial considerations have changed. So I thought, okay, what I need to do is make sure just go in and update that stuff, and that'll be done. And I was doing this not only to re-release the Right or Wrong Volume 1 to get that back in print, but also prepare for Volume 2. What ended up happening was I was going through like, I can add a little additional context here. A lot's gone on in the last 10 years. I can add a little extra context here. And then along with updating the technology and some of the financial aspects, the 215-page book turned into a 260-page book. And that's not including all the other additional updated content. So Right or Wrong second edition has about 30% new and updated material. This is a book that really is specifically designed to help people who want to make comic books, or I've had a lot of people tell me it's helped them in their prose writing careers, their music careers. But it's all about that life of the creative and like how do you go from, and I frame it through the lens of making comics. I'm a guy that loves comics. I knew I had the capacity to make comics, but I can't draw. So how do you meet artists? How do you build your team? How do you go through this whole journey and things like that? And what do you pay artists? Where do you find artists? What do you do when your team falls apart? What do you do when your house falls apart? Oh, thank you, Josh. I appreciate it. Yeah, rightorwrongbook.com. Go to Kickstarter, Right or Wrong. So this is really my pay it forward thing. You know, I vowed years ago that if I ever got to the point where I was making comics, that I would do everything I could to help other people get there. And I did this as a column at Newsarama for years. We moved the column over to Bleeding Cool then for a while after that. My other writing duties got to the point where I just couldn't deliver the column on the schedule I wanted. So we put out volume 1 as a book, so it'll exist that way forever. Which thank goodness, because nothing on the internet's permanent. Eventually, Newsarama's like servers went away and all the old content was gone.
Oh, no.
But also in preparation of a second volume. So yeah, you can get the book. Also, a cheap little funny plug in celebration of my 20th anniversary as a published writer. Knucklehead's Toys have made the Desk Dirk. So you know, if you want a little bonus material, limited edition Dirk Manning figure that you can actually get based on my avatar.
What is Dirk holding in his hand?
He's holding, your favorite book, Jen. He's holding a little Tales of Mystery book there as well. So there's a little add-on you can get if you're not familiar with my work. There's some really economical add-ons. We've unlocked 3 rounds of stretch goals at rightorwrongbook.com, which means everyone gets 9 bonus items for free. You get the first issue of Hope Volume 2, Haunted High-On's Curse of the Green Book, and Cthulhu Jr., the whole first issue, the whole first script, so you can compare even more. And then as well as a new bonus commentary for me about what it was like and what went into making those books. So anybody interested in pursuing creative adventures, and I tell people, even if you have the original edition of this book, the new version's the same book, the same chapters, a lot of updated information, a lot of new information. I did add a new foreword. I also added a new epilogue to the book. But it's a good refresher. You know, I'm not out to beat anybody up. I'm not out to get rich on this book. I'm out to help people out. And if you have the original edition of this book, I've told people you may want to consider getting the new version. It's just a refresher, just a reboot, just to kind of, up your game again a little bit. Just kind of, get a little bit of a refresher on what's going on.
And so it's an opportunity to, like, if you're like, okay, I don't need both versions of it, then you get the new one for yourself. And then you can think about who's in my life that I can encourage in their writing. Maybe you have a nephew or a niece that is you can pass it on to them.
Yeah, do that. Because again, the chapters are the same. And again, the original book, I do feel, has the universal truths in the book are the same. There's nothing really in the book factually in the original version. I was like, oh, I really disagree with this. That's not true. But the book goes from, I know I could do this if given a chance. I'm just not sure how to get started. All the way up to, here's how to make the first book. And then when volume 2 comes out, it's going to be about, okay, now that you have the comic, now that let's pick a random one, right? Now that you made the comic book, or now that you made the graphic novel, I'll do this one. Now that you made the graphic novel, what do you do with it? Mm-hmm. That'll be volume 2. But first, I wanted to get volume 1 back in print. It was SourcePoint, who, I roll deep with SourcePoint. I have a lot of love for them as a publisher, a lot of respect for them. A lot of the SourcePoint old guard actually came up through Right or Wrong. So it's been a really cool full circle moment to do that. And then even now, it's funny. I just have to laugh because Gary Reed published the original version of Right or Wrong on a handshake deal. And now this year, I'm again nominated for the Gary Reed Independent Creator of the Year Award at Cherry Capital Comic Con in Traverse City next weekend, which I know will parlay into your next guest with Rob. But it's just, what a world, that the new edition of this book that Gary originally published. is now up for pre-sale when I'm nominated for an award named after Gary. So, which the award's designed for people who help other people in comics. So it's been a fun 20th anniversary so far.
Well, congratulations on the nomination. So you'll find out when do they do that? Is that a Saturday or?
Yeah, it's Saturday towards the end of the show. It's Cherry Capital Comic Con. Absolutely amazing convention. One of my favorite conventions of the year. And I'm sure Rob's going to talk about a lot more. But this year, Ben Templesmith is going to be there.
Wow.
Yeah, Rob Humphrey will be there. Austin McKinley will be there. So you'll have the creative team and Blaze from Blaze at Homie will be there. They're doing an advanced release of the full first issue of the Blaze at Homie one shot. Ben did a variant cover for it. It's going to be available exclusively at the show. You can get it signed by Ben, get it signed by Blaze, get it signed by Rob the writer, get it signed by Austin McKinley the artist. Austin McKinley, also the artist of Tales Mystery Volume 5. You haven't picked that up yet. Come pick that up from me or him. We can both sign that for you as well. It's just going to be a really, really cool event. And Cherry Capital Comic Con is really a destination convention too. You know, it's way up in the mitten. But to go up to Traverse City Memorial Day weekend, there's a lot worse ways you can spend a weekend than go to that show, see all the amazing creators, include the creators I've nominated along with, including fellow Source Point creator Dr. Christy Blanche.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to losing to her this year. I told her, I said, oh, Christy, it's gonna be an honor to watch you take the award this year, my friend. No, I don't know that.
But all the names that are in there are just like amazing.
Oh my God, it's a murderer's row. I mean, this year, and again, just such incredible talent. But just to have my name mentioned amongst 3 other amazing creators of that caliber, and to have my name associated with Gary's mission, which was to pay it forward to other writers, it's really an honor. You know, it's really an honor, and it's not so much even about winning as much it's about just paying it forward. You know, at the end of the day, it's what it's all about. Just pay it forward.
But exactly what the award is about is who you are. So
right, well, yeah, there you go. Right, so yeah, Cherry Capital Comic Con Memorial Day weekend, Traverse City. Even if you can't make it up this year, if it's too tight to get up this year, too tight of a time schedule, make that a destination for the next time they have the show. It's such a good show run by great people. It's one of my favorite conventions of the year every year. But again, you know, it's funny. This past weekend, I was in Texas with you. Next weekend, I'm going to be up in Traverse City. It's just
I'm guessing the weather
stuff that's going to go into volume 2 of Right or Wrong, talking about when you get to that point, when you've been doing this for 20 years and you get to go from one tip of the country to the other in 2 weeks. You know,
that's the comics life.
And bring some Bucky's Beaver Balls to Traverse City.
Right.
I can't bring the whole bag, but at least bring some.
Stop by your booth, I guess. maybe there'll be some left.
Maybe there'll be some beaver balls left. We'll see.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you for hanging out with us.
No, I really appreciate it. And again, people want to check out the Desk Dirk, the book, rightorwrongbook.com. Check it out. If you know someone else interested in creating comics, send them the link. Maybe British Kyle will get it up there real quick for us, or let people know about it. Maybe buy them a present for Christmas or something. I don't know, but just really, it's my pay for book. So thank you for me. Come on, Jen. Thank you for having me last weekend, and I'm so excited to stick around and watch as a civilian. Get to watch Rob Humphrey.
Oh yes, come and harass him in the comments.
What's that?
Come and harass him in the comments.
Oh, I'm not Pat. I wouldn't harass him, but I look forward to watching because Rob's one of my favorite people, one of my favorite writers. You're all going to be blown away by what they're doing with Blaze at Home. So,
oh yeah. All right, everyone, stick around. It's your opportunity to make a share for anybody that thinks that would be really interested in the second half of this interviews and get some insight into what Rob's been up to. So come right back after this break. Thanks, Dave.
You know how when you go to Comic-Con, after Comic-Con, you go to the hotel bar, and there's a whole bunch of people playing music and dancing, and you've got Pikachu and Lara Croft Tomb Raider doing the cha-cha slide just down from Deadpool and Batman and Wonder Woman? That's every Saturday night over on the Experience Twitch channel. Join Taji Beats for the EXP Dance Party, exclusively on Twitch, twitch.tv/the_EXP. Why was Princess Zelda sad after watching a bunch of YouTube videos? She couldn't find a link in the description. We'll stop if you subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's super easy. Click subscribe and click the bell when you do. And thanks for supporting the EXP.
Talkin Shop. I'm Miss Jen, and you're watching us here on The Experience. I appreciate y'all be here so much. Give us some hearts and some thumbs up, because just like the rest of the world, we need a little bit of positive reinforcement, you know. Everyone, welcome my good friend Rob Humphrey. I'm super excited.
Miss Jen!
Again, I still love your room so much.
Thank you. It's ever evolving.
I kind of feel like next time you come on, maybe there'll be like the whole ceiling also will be filled with goodness.
It's getting there. One of these times when, below the camera isn't a god-awful mess, we'll do a tour.
I kind of feel like you can't really be a comic book / collector of things and have everything super neat. Now, I might be wrong. That might be my personality. I kind of feel like...
No, guilty as charged.
Organized chaos. Organized chaos, right?
Absolutely. I know where everything is. It's all in this room.
Is it all? Oh, no. Is it all relegated to one room? My problem is at my house is that my collecting is kind of like snuck into most rooms, including like the laundry room. My husband is a saint. I'm just going to say it out loud.
He is a pretty good guy.
He's so sweet to me. Every once in a while, he'd be like, Jen?
You've spilled out into other areas.
It's like, no, I didn't put anything in your closet. I don't know what that is.
Why is this Funko in the dryer? How else am I going to get it dry?
Although I will have to say, I've never been tempted to do like, that kind of fun meme that people put up that are like, where did this new collectible come from? And then it's like, choose one of these four. It's like, what collectible? That's been here for years.
I love plausible deniability. Like, I have no idea how that got there. It just
right. Or the last one is, you're so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh man.
The line between, this is Josh saying, the line between collector and hoarder might come down to being able to find your cat.
That's fair. That is fair and true. Occasionally, when the cats sneak up onto the shelves of collectibles and then they sit still, almost like a statue, and then you second guess whether or not they're a part of the collection or not. And then they knock it all over, as cats will do.
Yeah, they love doing that. And the lieutenant who's on watching also says, I know where everything is except for when I'm looking for it. Mm-hmm. I feel you. So you've been busy.
I have been busy.
Really busy. So how far out do you guys start working on what happens for the con? Year?
Yeah, my go-to response is always the day after the show closes for the year. But it's not, I don't know that that's entirely true. I mean, in recent years, there's been a lot of front loading of early conversations. So like I've had 2024 planning conversations already and the 2023 show hasn't happened yet. So in some instances it's over a year, and in others it pretty much picks right up when the doors close on the current year's show.
Do you find yourself having to do that a little bit because people's schedules get filled up pretty early, and if you don't call them, then they just can't?
Yeah, I think where it really becomes a thing is schedules. It's also it's not just schedules, but it's for others, but also schedules for us to make sure that we typically we're on the same date every year, but it hasn't always been that way. We have moved dates occasionally, especially in the early years and the first year post COVID. So there's a lot of kind of shifting on our side that happens too. But I like to get ahead if we're planning something new for the show that we've never done before. That we don't have a rhythm built around yet, or if there is somebody that we're really trying to land as a featured guest, or if we're trying to theme the show in a way that no, we need like this person and this person to make this thing work. I try to give as much notice as possible, even if that notice is met with get a hold of me in 3 months or 6 months and let me know then. At least I'm priming the conversation early enough that it's not a surprise when it comes around.
Oh yeah. All right, we're going to get back to the con, but I did want to start talking about, I feel like we've talked often enough that maybe some people have been in when we've talked to you before. I actually found something I don't know how I have missed it, because it seems like it's something you've been doing for a long time, and I don't know how I missed the punching the clock. Is that, so for what I could find, it was coming out just as a regular bit in... was it an online news? Yeah.
So Jeff Manley and I, it was actually my first real comics work back in 2011. He and I had done, he was at Cherry Capital year one, and he missed year two, and we're both local to the same area. So we bumped into each other at a local event and just started gabbing oh yeah, you're that guy. Oh yeah, you're that guy. And the conversation devolved into we should do something together. And then we kind of just connected up online and started talking and dropping ideas back and forth. And then, I spent almost 20 years working retail, and really the Punch the Clock was really like a therapy for me. It was catharsis of dealing with the silly things that happen when you work for corporate retail, making the absurd even more absurd. So Jeff and I launched our own website, and we stuck to a weekly schedule. We were Tuesdays. We kicked off Black Friday week of 2011. And we launched that first week a strip every day up through the Thanksgiving holiday and Black Friday. Every day for the first week, just to get people excited, to get it, getting the shares on social media and trying to get it in front of people. And then we settled into a weekly update, and we ran for over 3 years, a few hundred strips, 4 volumes later. And it's been printed in 4 trades, and it's we just revisited it this past holiday season. We did a little reunion tour and did a 12 Days of Christmas reunion for the Punching the Clock gang. It was a lot of fun.
So is it based in just general retail or in comic book retail? Because I know the one that I read was comic book, clearly.
Like big box retail. I worked for 2 very large big box retailers for a very long time in varying capacities. And the amount of absurdity that happens in all walks of retail, but especially the big cookie cutter, big box stores, is such a broad assortment of silliness and abusiveness and kind of questioning your life choices that, it all centered around, that big Walmart, Target, Big Lots, Best Buy, Circuit City type experience.
Oh yeah, it's I feel like everyone should work retail at least once in their life, just so that they, what workers there are up against.
Retail and food service, you learn a whole lot of respect for the service industry very quickly.
I think the one thing that I don't miss, and something I don't do for my store, is because I didn't like this is how it has to be. you remember floor resets where they would just send you photocopies of what a wall was supposed to look like, and you replicated that so every store everywhere looked the same? I was just like, but that's boring.
One of the retailers I worked for had a system that it would generate schematics without pictures. So you would get a box representation of your shelving unit, and then outlines of boxes in the shapes that they were with a number attached to them, like position 1, position 2, position 3. And then you had basically an Excel sheet of listing of the corresponding numbers of the product that went in those spots. Occasionally you would get them where it was like, here's your physical shelf. And then the boxes would go all the way across the page. So you'd have like 5 or 6 boxes on either side just floating in the air. You're like, I don't know how to do this. Like, I can't bend the laws of physics for you. We'll just make it up as we go along.
Or my other favorite was like, they were like, under no circumstances can you change the schematic.
Yeah.
And I would be like, but some of this merchandise came in 2 weeks ago and it was popular. So we have like one piece of it. They're like,
exactly.
Put that there. Okay.
It's like the pirate code. It's more just like a set of guidelines, right? Like, can't really follow the rules exactly with that.
My staff, I'm just like going, hey, if you can make any space in the store look different than it was last month, you should do that.
Right. Keep it looking fresh and looking good.
Oh yeah, it's the first rule, right? So, are you still tempted to make them, or you have plans to put some more out there?
Yeah, Jeff and I both had other. We had other things that we were chasing toward the end of the series, and we went out on a high note. Like it was such a roller coaster. Those first couple of years, we had been up for 6 months running, and we ran a successful Kickstarter. We got featured on a whole bunch of different comics websites. We reviewed. We were on Bleeding Cool. We were on MTV on comics. We got nominated for a Comic Buyer's Guide Fan Award. Like,
amazing.
It was crazy. Like, in 6 months, we went from not having any type of platform or audience to just like, whoa, there is a lot happening. And so it was an intense, wild ride. And kind of toward the end of it, we didn't really telegraph to people that we were ending. We ended abruptly. Like, I always knew where I was going to end the series, and I always had an idea to come back and continue it where it would pick up from. And so about 1.5 years into our 3+ years, I started planting the seeds, working toward the end of, this point that I had envisioned where the story would end. And so once we closed up shop, it was very abrupt. We had a lot of very vocal fans that were upset that it ended as quickly as it did. And then we just pursued some other things, and life happens, and Jeff's family expanded, and I changed careers a couple of times, and for day job stuff, and it was just a crazy time. And it was interesting this past, so like we haven't touched it since 2014, 2015, I think is when we came to a halt. So this past holiday season, I somewhere around Thanksgiving, I just got this itch, and I texted Jeff, and I was like, hey, you want to get the band back together? Like, out of the blue and random, after 6 or 7 years of not producing content together. And he was just like, I'm down. What are you thinking? So it was fun to go back and revisit it for a short story. And I have an idea of what I would like to do to put a definitive end on things. I feel like it's good as it is now, but there's one more story that I'd like to tell. And I wouldn't discount going back to it at some point. I've always had this thought of an omnibus, and within that omnibus, the end of the series. That's kind of, it's not happening exactly yet, but that's where my head's at.
And that would be good. That would be a good reason, it's a good thing for people like me who don't have any of that material. I would be totally down for it. So I would have it all very easily in one space.
Well, I know who to come to then.
Right.
That's how I'm going to sell it to Jeff.
It's like, Jeff, Miss Jen's down.
Jen will order this.
You have another awesome project that you've got going on. I did not know this gentleman at all before the Twisted Tour came to the store, but I finally got to meet Blaze. Goes by Blaze, you dead homie. And I actually I told him, I said, I am clearly a dummy, but I have to ask you. I asked him seriously if there was a pause there, like, Blaze, you dead homie, or just straight up Blaze, you dead homie. So he thought it was a silly question, but I was like, I'm serious. I want to know. I want to say it right.
Blaze is amazing. I was so excited to see that those guys came through the store. He's such a commanding presence in person. It's like there's just those people that it's one thing to interact with them digitally, virtually, but when you meet Blaze in person, it's a whole other thing. He just has this presence. Is such an interesting vibe to just be around him and soak in just kind of who he is. It's just such a fun environment to be around. Austin McKinley and I were at Astronomicon this past March, and it was the first time that Blaze got to meet Austin too, face to face, and we're all hanging out. It's just like it's just such a cool vibe, and yeah, he's fantastic. And the project, Blaze, you dead homie, that one shot coming from Source Point and Magic Ninja. It's gonna be a lot of fun. It's crazy pants. Do
I understand it correctly that it gives him like an origin?
It is. We set out to tell the definitive Blaze, you dead homie origin story, and for me, the guys at Magic Ninja they're just creative powerhouses. They have so many fantastic ideas, and you can see it through the music and the stage presence and everything they do when they go out on tour. So it was a fun challenge to sit down and work with those guys and really kind of take the definitive origin that exists within the music and reconcile that with the man that you interact with and the performer on stage. Because there's a whole lore behind Blaze, you dead homie. And it's a little intimidating walking in going like, oh man, like I hope I land this right. But they've been fantastic partners, and it's been such a fun story to tell, and to kind of bring all those elements together. And we're really heavily influenced by the music and trying to surface that through the comic. That I think fans are going to be really, really surprised when they read it.
This is a book that is better enjoyed with a cool sound system, and
I'll tell you what. For anybody that's interested, when you pick up a copy of the book, if you want a set list of songs to listen to while you're reading it, I can provide that. There is a distinct set list that infers the comic. So it does have a soundtrack.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I don't want it to be like those dumb cards you get where you open it up and it like starts playing birthday music or whatever. I kind of feel like if there was a way to do that, like you put on your own headphones and as it opens or so, it reads some, I don't know. It would be cool if it just like played it as, so it could see where you were looking on the page and just like, okay, it needs to transition now. They're a fast reader.
It would be so fun. And now you've got, I love stuff like that. Like, thinking about the mechanics of how those greeting cards work. I'm like, I wonder if you could mass produce that for a comic and make it work.
Someone out there is like going, the technology exists and we can do it. I can almost see it as almost like an AR version, but like there had to be some kind of interaction between your headphones and whatever the reader was. Josh has a good question. It says, any advice from your weekly creative experience, considering web comics are back in a big way, thanks to Webtoon and Tapas?
So this is actually a really fun question. I think the game has really changed in the last 10 years for webcomics. Even when I got into it, and Dirk will tell you too, because he was doing webcomics before I was early on with the early Nightmare World stuff. These platforms for webcomics just didn't exist at that point in creating comics on the web. And the ones that emerged kind of on the front end of that did not have the functionality that the new ones have. So it's now more than ever is a fantastic time to engage with these platforms. And you basically, you have a whole pool of audience to expose your work to. I think I did some research when I first started Punching the Clock in 2011. And I think at that time there was something like 22,000 active webcomics at that time on the web, which was a lot.
That prolific back then. Wow.
There were a lot of them. And I did a lot of research because this was more of like, it's a workplace buddy comedy, right? And so I started looking at retail themed webcomics at the time. And so if that's another piece of advice I can impart, do your research. If you have an idea that's genre based, look at what other people are doing to get a sense of like, not to step on Dirk's feet, but right or wrong, right? I learned a lot just by going through and looking at other people's work, not even just from a content perspective, but just from how it's structured and how it's presented, right? I was able to pick out some things right away that I was like, ooh, no, I don't want to do that. I don't want it to look this way. I don't want it to feel this way. You can kind of feel out what you like by working through the things that just don't vibe with, how your take on creating.
Do you mean the difference between like the scroll down versions versus the kind of like the traditional comic book panel looking ones?
Yeah, when we first started working out the format for Punching the Clock, we built a WordPress website with a Comics Press plugin. So I'm dating myself. This is way back in the day, right? But we
it's still on WordPress.
but I don't even know if the Comics Press plugin exists anymore, the way that WordPress dumps through plugins and themes. But we themed the whole website around the comics. So when you went to punchingtheclock.com, it was built as if it was like a big box retailer intranet, like an employee system. So like you had a place where you could meet the other employees and it would give you bios of all the characters. There was a place you could check your punches. So like you could look at your schedule and it was a complete listing of all of the previous strips in order that you could go back and read. So we tried to theme it around that with, like the idea of having a shop where you could buy stuff was like the employee discount section, things like that. It was all themed and branded around the retailer that we had built within their universe. So
like that.
Yeah, it was so fun to do. So I don't know that I haven't played around on the back end of Webtoon or anything like that. I think you're pretty much within their formatting at that point. So you have some decisions on, like, there's some give and take. If you set out on your own and do your own website, you don't have the visibility, but you have a little bit more freedom to be creative in areas outside of the story. But you can sacrifice that little bit of creativity for a platform with potential readers. One of the biggest things that I can say as far as webcomics are concerned, pick a schedule, make yourself deadlines and stick to them. Like that, the very first year, it was militant about making sure that we had new content every Tuesday when we promised people that it would be out. Because if you start to get inconsistent in your posting and you miss your schedule, you'll start losing readership. Or people don't come back and check as often, right? They might come back a few months later and then binge a whole bunch of stuff. But, we were trying to build like a weekly fan base, and, we had hundreds of thousands of followers by the end of it. So, it worked. I think we were at least a year and a half in before we posted a late strip. And, the few times that it happened, it was always kind of front loaded with an explanation of why. And, we tried to plan out in terms of baking in, when one of us would need time off for something, whether it was family related or something like that, bring in a guest writer, bring in a guest artist to do some strips, just so there was something new, coming up every week that people could check out and be excited about.
Oh, yeah. Well, we're in the last couple of minutes here, and I don't want anyone to miss the fact that I want people to put it in their calendar. Blaze You Dead Homie comes out on the 21st, I believe.
21st June.
Got time. And then don't miss Cherry Capital, which is this weekend. And they've got a huge lineup of people. You definitely want to be there for the Gary Reed Awards, which is very prestigious. And it was formed after Gary passed because he dedicated his life to bringing up other people. Like, he's known, if you ask almost anybody from early comic books, like Caliber Comics and Source Point, and like almost all of those guys that exist right now will point to him for the reason they exist. So
Gary's responsible for some of my favorite creators and some of my favorite comics, you know, in the history of comics. Gary was a mainstay and a pillar in not just the Midwest comics community, just in the comics community in general. So, you know, what we do to honor him is to me, it's I wish there was more, you know, but being able to honor someone in his name each year with what he did for the comics community is one of my favorite things about what we do.
Yeah, it's if you could be a Gary Reed in whatever industry you're in, if you could be that person that helps raise up other people, I can tell you it's never to your detriment. It's always to your benefit to you know, you were given gifts from someone else in your life to get you where you were. It's always wonderful to like then extend that and keep that going. And that's what he did for sure. Gary has done more for comics than most casual readers will ever know, which is why the award is special. It's right to keep his name out there so people know. Anything else past Blaze Ya Dead Homie that we should start thinking about?
Blaze Ya Dead Homie's the big focus. I'm working on a few things behind the scenes right now, a couple of creator-owned projects that aren't ready to announce yet. But Blaze is the big push right now, dropping in June. And thank you again for doing your pre-order special with the prints. That's fantastic.
Yeah, they were super sweet. I have to say thanks again to Blaze and ABK for, you know, making them, and Austin for doing the art, for making these cool prints. We barely have any, like the fully signed ones. We have 6 of them left, and then I think we only have 10 of the unsigned ones. But we're offering them up. We put it on eBay so everyone can grab them if they want to, just as an extra cool thing that you can only get. They brought it on the tour and they don't have any left, so that's it. So definitely support really cool books like this, even if you're not familiar with Blaze's work, or because I wasn't familiar with Blaze or Twisted not that long ago, and now I'm a big fan, and the book looks to be a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate you for being here. Otherwise, the hearts. Definitely, take chances on books if it seems cool, and go hunt down copies of Punch in the Clock or wait for the aforementioned omnibus that is sure to happen.
I still have Punch in the Clock available through my website, and it is available on Amazon. So, Jen, if you need a few for the shop, let me know. I can hook you up too.
Oh, absolutely. Now that I know it exists, I need to read it. All right. Oh, Robert, that's asking a question. I actually have them listed now on eBay for easy order because I know a lot of people that were not local that needed to ship them. So, and then if you miss this, then you should definitely get with your local comic shop because there are some cool other cover copies that you like. There's a Ben Templesmith cover.
Yeah, the Ben Templesmith cover is an exclusive for Cherry Capital Comic Con this weekend.
Then you have to find someone that's going there so you can get it.
Who could be there this weekend?
I don't know. You saw 2 people that are going to be there this weekend. All right, everybody, we got to split out because there's a cool show on after this, and I'm really horrible at getting out on time, so I apologize to my producers. All my bad. Love you, Rob, and I'll see you again next time. I know whenever you can talk about the books that you have any works, we'll have you back and we'll talk.
We'll talk. Okay. Thank you so much, Jen.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you guys next week for Talkin Shop.
Join the party. Head over to our link tree to find all the links for everywhere the experience is all the time.